Anytime I did a scene with Joanna Lumley and then Catherine Zeta-Jones, I was in awe, just so impressed. Truly, truly such masters at what they do. Those were always some of my favorite days on set.
Hello, my little vipers. I am Caitlin Riley, and this is the Wednesday Season 2 official WOCast. Over the next 8 episodes, we'll be looking back at the most chaotic moments from the show and chatting with the geniuses, the actual geniuses who made it happen.
Ajax is just lending his hand, and that really means a lot in Bianca's world.
First up on the WOCast, we've got Jenna Ortega here to spill her psychic vision for Season 2. We'll also be talking with Al Goff and Miles Miller, the twisted minds behind the show. And along the way, our producer, Thing. Hey, buddy. He's going to help me make sure everyone can be seen and heard. I am now joined by Wednesday Addams herself. She needs no introduction, but we'll give her one anyway.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us, Jenna Ortega.
Yeah, hey guys, how you doing?
So last season, you did so much preparation for Wednesday. You were fencing, you learned how to play the cello, you learned how to speak German.
Genießen Sie Ihr authentisches Pilgerfahrt aus Kakaobohnen.
How did you get back into Wednesday's headspace for this season?
I feel like I kind of fell into her quite naturally. A few years had passed since the show had come out, but sometimes when you do a character for so long, because we were shooting the first season for 8 months or something like that, so she was very familiar to me. And also, when you're working in that headspace and you're working on scripts that have that sort of dark sense of humor and certain kind of cadence and rhythm and humor, I do feel as though I've taken some of those traits with me just because I was practicing them all of the time.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes outside of your life when you're not working, you're thinking about how can I get into that deeper mindset. So I don't know. I knew that part existed, and so much of Wednesday relies on the physicality, which helps as well. And then Colleen Atwood, the wardrobe designer, she's absolutely incredible. And yeah, so her costumes as well. Nirvana Jalalvand, who did my hair and makeup for season 1, did my hair and makeup this time around. So again, trusted her. She knows everything. There was no hesitation or question. So there was just something about all of us being prepared and knowing what we were getting into already. Where
helps
first season,
snap back.
Yeah, first season was stressful and scary and confusing.
Well, I read somewhere that you sort of mastered the art of not blinking, which is, I noticed it a lot more this season too, where I'm like, yeah, no, she's not blinking. And it's such an incredible choice you've made with the character, I have to say.
Oh, thanks. I don't know when that happened. I just remember kicking myself once I realized that it was a thing. It felt wrong to have my eyes closed. And it's always funny because I appreciate the editor, Jay, because he, I think, knows when to use the blinks in vulnerable moments sometimes. And, you know, you can assist as much as you can, but I feel like I'm almost getting worse at it. I think the older I get and the more tired I get, just the more my eyes are dry.
Well, you made a choice and now you have to stick with it.
I know.
But it's a good choice. I didn't see any blinking happening. It was great.
Appreciate that.
So how did we evolve Wednesday's look this season with her costuming? Were you working closely with Colleen and her team? How is it different this season from last season?
I trust Colleen Atwood and Mark Sutherland so immensely that I just kind of let them play and do what they need to do.
Right.
I think when I first had my big fitting, you have one big fitting at the beginning of a show and then you're shooting so much it's harder to get in. So we just did hours of trying on clothes. And because we're coming back from summer break, they were saying something about it being kind of 90s summer. We were trying chunky sandals with white socks. Wednesday doesn't like showing skin, so it's, you know, it was just very awkward. The palest parts of my body were white fabric from long t-shirts and things like that. But they're the coolest, and yeah, you don't want to get in the way of their genius at all.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on the Addams clan expanding this season. Pugsley is a new student at Nevermore, which is a new dynamic for you and your brother. Morticia and Gomez are closer than ever. Gross. So how do we see Wednesday's dynamic with her mother expand and change? And what was it like bringing that to life with Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Well, it was a hard balance because she's very annoyed with her mother, and I didn't want to repeat season 1 because they're kind of going head-to-head the entire time. But in the same breath, it's entirely understandable if you're looking for your independence and trying to be your own person, and then your mom comes to babysit you and hover over you. That's frustrating for anybody. But I try to make sure that there's a bit more love in between, and maybe you saw that, Wednesday wasn't being completely irrational about it. And I don't know, I just didn't want it to be the same thing. So I tried to work with that. And then it was wonderful having Pugsley around. Isaac, I think, looks like he came straight out of a Charles Addams comic strip.
Truly.
He's got such a perfect look.
Yeah.
He's grown into Pugsley even more and more. I remember when we auditioned him for the first time, we were auditioning Pugsley's and he got off the Zoom and we all just kind of looked at each other, me, Tim, Al Miles, and we just said, okay, so it's him, right?
Yeah.
He was just the most unanimous cast that we had, and he's great, and I love to be able to bully him. It's hard because Wednesday has to balance so much of the mystery aspect that you want to make sure that her personality still gets to shine a bit more, and it's not just all information, or it comes off nasty or bratty.
Right.
So it was nice to have, it's understandable to bicker with your sibling.
Right.
So he was always a nice comedic relief.
There's a stop sign coming up. Hit the O dead center.
I'm not sure I can.
If you don't, I'll be forced to hit eject.
Only Dad's button can do that.
I had thing rewire it.
We meet Grandmama this season.
I know.
Filming those were some of my favorite scenes that you had.
Those were some of my favorite scenes to shoot as well. Joanna Lumley, legend.
An icon.
Legend. She's everything you would hope her to be and more. She's just so sweet, so unbelievably funny, the most professional on set. Knew everyone's lines. I don't think I ever saw her mess up once, honestly. And she looked amazing. That Bride of Frankenstein hair reference was so cool.
The best hair.
And a lot of our crew, they're from the UK as well. So
so I'm sure she was.
They all screamed.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Anytime I did a scene with Joanna Lumley and then Catherine Zeta-Jones, I was in awe, just so impressed, and truly, truly such masters at what they do. Those were always some of my favorite days on set.
Yeah.
Grandmama was always better at burying things than fixing them.
Old memories are like old corpses. They never quite seem the same when you dig them up.
Mama, what an unpleasant surprise.
Varrica's told me you rang, and I wanted to give Wednesday the deed to the cemetery I bought her. Just a little starter property, give her a taste of the family business.
I wanted to talk about some more relationships with you. You see a difference in your dynamic this season with Enid. So I wanted to talk about reuniting with Emma and expanding on that relationship this season and how it's changing and how it's going to change.
I don't want to speak on Emma's behalf, but in the same breath, we talked a lot about Enid's style kind of changing and the way that she carried herself. And that's a very natural thing for a teenager to do. And she looked cool. She was becoming more confident and independent and, was a very strong believer in her own strength, which I think is really empowering and incredible for girls to see. I'm so glad that Emma is so great. She really is so talented. So I was glad that she had a bit more to play with.
Yeah, she was great this season.
Yeah, she's just, she's such a lovable character. And that's all thanks to Emma. So anytime we're kind of distant, not to give too much away, but we're kind of distant in the first few episodes. It was so strange to play that, that distance, because shooting with her, those are the easiest for sure. We just have a natural chemistry and rapport, and it was weird to go against that.
I die because of you. I die because of you! Wednesday?
So Wednesday has a psychic vision that Enid's going to die. And even though Wednesday is obviously so stoic and brilliantly played by you, she has to save her best friend. So what paths do you think that puts Wednesday on that might be different from what we've already seen from her?
It's strange because Wednesday is doing all of this for a friend. And that just itself is, unnatural to her and new for her. And it puts her in an uncomfortable position because she's kind of extending herself in a way that she hasn't before. I think that was really big. And it's the first time where maybe she doesn't want to inflict pain on somebody else, at least not take it that far. She's okay to mess with Enid a little, but I think death is a step too far.
Yeah, I'm sort of noticing in this season, there's a level of vulnerability that Wednesday is experiencing where she really is starting to care for Enid and wants to take care of her as a friend, as opposed to just putting herself in a box and sticking to what is in her comfort zone. And so I think that's been really interesting to see, and I've been loving that.
Yeah, and it was really important to me also that it's just, Wednesday doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to acknowledge it, that it just exists.
And your relationship with Enid's really incredible. And I mean, I was such a fan watching this season. And
yeah, they're cute together.
Yeah, and I love where Wednesday's going, and she's being broken open a little bit. And it's been really nice to see you play that, for sure.
Nice.
I just have so many goals this year. I want to secure my place in the pack, become dance troupe captain, and finally join the Nightshades. What about you?
Avoid people and work on my new Viper de la Muerte novel.
That doesn't sound like much of a personal evolution.
I don't evolve. I cocoon.
So in addition to starring on the show, you are a producer this season. How has your role changed? What have you learned? What has it been like collaborating with Alan Miles on this season?
Well, I feel like I'm a part of conversations earlier on, which is really nice. I love to see the process. I love what I do, so it's so fascinating to watch scripts being made and, be a part of the pitches or decisions being made on prosthetics. We kind of always had a collaborative relationship, but it was really wonderful. Me, Al, Miles, Tim being able to sit together and just kind of break down scripts and decide what we felt was best for the character and the show. And because I love film, TV, I've always wanted to be on the other side of the camera. I feel like I've learned so much. And I was lucky enough to be with people who allowed me to learn and shadow them and, follow Tim around on location scouts and things like that.
I mean, that's a dream. Location scouting with Tim.
Yeah.
Sounds like
pretty crazy.
The best day ever.
Definitely.
Now, do you find that putting on your producer hat is easier or is it harder than putting on your actor hat?
I guess sometimes it depends on the job. Certain characters require different things. But with Wednesday, because she's so particular,
right,
and it's not always about feeling natural, playing her is actually quite unnatural because you have to keep reminding yourself to do less, do less, do less.
Right.
I look at everything in a more objective sense because it's really about the image on the outside, and every once in a while you have to work the gears. I don't know, it's a fine balance, but also doing it for so long, you snap into it. I knew what the character needed, and I had studied her enough and understood her well enough at that point. And then producer was just more so, I'm very observant, and oftentimes on set, I can be quiet and I just like to watch people work. Sometimes I don't like leaving the set. I don't like going back to the tent. I like to watch everyone work. So I think having been familiar with the way the set operated already, we try to find our time. Also, such a busy schedule. We try to find time in between setups and takes and things like that to have conversations about the show, which was nice and better. You can bring a book or something in between set, but you're not really going to be that productive in it.
Exactly. It's more fun to watch and soak it all in.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jenna, for joining us.
Thank you.
And I look forward to talking to you in the future about episode 8.
Me too.
Wait. This is the first time you've ever willingly returned to a school. How does it feel?
Like returning to the scene of the crime. I already know where the bodies are buried.
I need to make a note on the scripts for the next episode of the WOCast. Thing, can you grab a pen for me, please? Thing, you okay, bud? Aye. I am so excited to welcome the dream team behind Wednesday. They are co-creators, co-showrunners, executive producers, and writers. That's a lot. Everybody, please welcome Al Gough and Miles Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So right off the bat, at the beginning of the season, we're back in action. Why did you want to kick off the season that way, by having Wednesday take down a killer?
We wanted to show Wednesday, it's sort of what she did on her summer vacation.
Yeah.
I see.
So it was like, what would Wednesday Addams do on her summer vacation? She'd take down a serial killer. So it allowed us to see Wednesday in the real world, which is also fun, and see her going up against authority figures like she does at the TSA.
Mm-hmm. And our very famous TSA officer, Al, finally got a cameo in the...
I was gonna
Yeah. You were like, who's the guy in the baseball cap? He looks very familiar to you.
Yes.
He does. He does. I was roped into that by Miles and
You
Tim Burton.
wanted to do
No,
it.
I
Don't
did not.
lie, Al.
No, I did not. I didn't. But I had done the same thing to Miles in the season 1 opener where he was the judgy teacher. And so...
So it was sweet revenge for me.
So Miles was smiling the whole time until I got a line, and then he was annoyed.
Well, and now you have an acting credit on IMDb.
Exactly.
Now, we see so much of the intergenerational Addams women this season, which I loved. How did you approach those dynamics writing-wise?
It was definitely an intentional choice.
Yeah.
I mean, what's interesting about the Addams family is everybody loves them. We know very little about them.
Right.
Because before the television show in the 60s, they didn't even have names.
Right.
They were named for the TV show. Then you have the movies in the 90s. And then you have some animated things. And now, but nobody knows about the family.
There's a deep lore.
There isn't a deep
or
lore,
mythology or comic books or novels. It's just they began as panels literally in the New Yorker. And so it's, for us, it's amazing because it's a clean slate. It's the map we can chart ourselves,
right?
In terms of learning the backstory, the history of the Addams family, and then also giving them some complexity. And we love the female relationships. But when we've introduced Grandmama this season, which was played by Joanna Lumley.
Was that a choice that you guys had early on?
It was literally the choice in the writer's room. We were like, we need like a Joanna Lumley type. And then we're like, well, why don't we just ask Joanna Lumley?
I love the generational story that's going on with the women. It's so brilliantly written.
And just the look.
The look.
The costumes and the hair. It's just like, and even the American accent. Because I've never heard her do an American accent before. And it's just
same.
Perfect.
She was great.
She was,
and she's such a delight on set, and everyone just she just word perfect. She comes in and just nails it, and it's just such a delight to be with. So it's just adding her to it, and seeing the 3 generations of Addams women together is just something that, we hoped would be good, and it's just surpassed our expectations. And I can't wait to do more with them. I mean, it's just, it's a really special chemistry between the 3 of them.
Yes.
And I think you see it on screen, and I think it's really, really good.
Darling, Grandmama and I need to speak. Alone.
Augustus Stonehurst. That's who signed those death certificates.
What are you and Wednesday up to?
She asked for my help.
You're not helping. Driving a wedge between me and my daughter.
That wedge was already an unbridgeable abyss, dear. My advice, stop the constant hovering. Wednesday needs space to grow. If she gets into a little trouble, it's a mother's job to stand back, let her figure it out for herself. Thrive or die.
Says the woman whose youngest daughter has been missing for 20 years.
What has it been like getting to make Catherine Zeta-Jones a more central figure this season? We see her sing, dance, sword fight. She's incredible.
Well, I think one thing we learned from season 1, like we said, is people wanted to know more about the family.
Yeah.
And we wanted to find a way to sort of organically bring the family into the school without feeling like they were just being shoehorned in.
Right.
So the idea that she would be the gala chairperson, suddenly she's there and around, but not, she's not like a teacher at the school or something, but she's there. And it allowed us to really flesh out the mother-daughter story, which again, you got glimpses of in season 1, in episodes 1 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we enjoyed that so much. And so did the fans from, the feedback we got.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they wanted to know more. Because what's interesting about the Addams family is the dynamic had always been set up like a sitcom. If you look at the original show, which is the Addamses were always aligned against the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
So what this show tries to do is interject an actual family dynamic. They all still love each other. We all have families that love each other, but you can still have conflict within the families and generational conflict and, issues with, parents and children and grandparents.
And particularly, there's the mother-daughter dynamic, which is always interesting in most families. So
know it well.
Yes.
So it's playing it's really.
Yes. We've had a front row seat in our family.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
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 It's always good. And then they want audience participation. I'd rather not play. Thank you.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, Catherine Zeta-Jones, she's such a perfect choice for Morticia, and she plays it so beautifully. And
well, and it's funny when we had this when we were first casting that role in season 1, even Tim was like, Jen, Wednesday's mother has to be a lot. You know what I mean? Like, who would be the mother where you felt like you couldn't get out of her shadow? An Oscar-winning actress would do that.
Velma Kelly herself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Finding, who is Morticia's mother.
Yes.
You needed like an icon, a legend. So Joanna was like, so each one feels like real. They bring great baggage to their roles.
Yeah.
So you have their great as their roles, but also like they say the Oscar-winning actress, legendary, sitcom star. So you have that whole thing, the delicious soup that happens. It's amazing.
Delicious soup.
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk about what happened last night at the pyre? You really freaked me out with the fainting spell and black tears.
I'm fine.
If you were really fine, Lurch wouldn't have had to carry you out of there. For someone who hates being the center of attention, you have a weird habit of attracting it.
I'd rather attract leprosy.
I know that being popular goes against everything Wednesday core, but for the rest of us who also helped save the school, it is a nice silver lining.
Then consider me your dark cloud.
Always.
Now, outside of the Addams clan, Wednesday's other relationships expand and change a lot this season. We immediately see a difference in her dynamic with Enid. Maybe there's a little distance, maybe a little tension. How do we see Enid and Wednesday's relationship change this season?
Well, Enid and Wednesday, I mean, their relationship is really kind of, the female friendship is really core to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, season 1 with the hug was like, oh, they're friends.
Right.
But this is the thing with Wednesday. She's never had a friend. And relationships and friendships change. And Enid has changed because now she's wolfed out. She has more confidence. She's part of a pack. So
boyfriend.
She's got a boyfriend. So all of those things. So she's not the same Enid from season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Wednesday also has to navigate that. And then, of course, by the end of the first episode, she finds out she could be responsible for Enid's death. Rather than bringing Enid into that, Wednesday feels like, she can't handle it. I'll deal with this myself.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still, it's still Wednesday learning how to be a friend.
Right.
I mean,
that's even just the arc of the season. It's actually, she underestimates Enid.
Yeah.
So it's there's sort of and one of Wednesday's issues is her arrogance and her lack of understanding that this idea of change, because she doesn't understand change. Also about control.
Yeah.
That she thinks she could control everything and control everyone, and she finds she can't.
She has the emotional growth. It's like AM radio bandwidth.
Right.
It's very small, but it's very meaningful when it happens. And
if it happens,
because, and what's interesting in the challenge of writing the character is she's doing all the things you would want a girl detective to do, but not for any of the reasons that a normal protagonist would do them. She's not there to save the day or to help people. She ends up doing all those things, but she's really there for her own, curiosity and to prove she's right and to solve a mystery that she can't solve because she's the smartest person in the room.
Well, she's also very much like a reluctant hero.
Very much.
Yeah.
And also, one of the challenges for us is that you have to protect the idea of Wednesday. So she's never going to be someone who is doing it out there for good and justice. She's doing it for other reasons. And I think it's actually, we always have to keep ourselves honest. Sometimes you fall into the trope of that she is rescuing people for these various reasons. And sometimes you're allowed to do that. In some episodes, she does do things because she cares about someone. But it's few and far between, and you have to earn that moment.
Yeah.
And also we have this, this rule about really making sure that the Wednesday people know and have always grown up with, she needs to be that person. She's not going to go through a huge arc like a normal protagonist would.
Right.
There's a purity to her and to her point of view that we need to keep and honor.
Yeah.
Wednesday Addams. Oh, it is an honor to meet the savior of Nevermore. Allow me to introduce myself, Barry Dort, your new principal. Would you like a sticker?
Only if you have one that says do not resuscitate.
There's that wicked tongue I've heard so much about. I love it.
We have a duplicitous new principal at the center of this season. Tell us about Principal Dort and what has it been like welcoming Steve Buscemi to the cast? Another incredible casting choice, might I say.
Yeah. Well, for us, it was like, how do we top Gwendolyn Christie in terms of Weems?
How do you?
Well, with Steve Buscemi.
Right.
So it's just finding someone who is the opposite of Weems and attitudinally, but also visually. So it was just something that we really wanted to find someone different. And Steve is such an icon. And the fact he wanted to do it and he'd watched the show, was a huge fan. It was just a total delight. He brings such a different energy to the show. Yeah. And in episode 1 is that great speech at the pyre where he dances to Bruce Springsteen. That was an idea Tim had the night before. It was like, guys, I think I want to have we had a line about Springsteen being an outcast. And then Tim said, let's play the song. It was like, we had to get the rights cleared in 12 hours. So it was a really, and just talking to Colleen about the look. Mm-hmm. So we had go from the classic beauty of Gwendolyn and the Tippi Hedren Hitchcockian femme fatale to Steve in a purple.
Yeah, it's like dadcore.
Yeah,
but it's the idea too that where Weems was all about trying to merge the normies and the outcasts and have that Dort's approach is nope, it's just outcasts on our own, outcast pride, sort of trying to build up their confidence and such. So, and of course he's a huckster underneath, but he brings such a great energy to it that's different, and that's what we really want.
And he's so likable. He's a total huckster, and even there's a scene in episode 1 where he's sort of really manipulative with Bianca, and it's really creepy and menacing. But it's Steve, so you kind of you don't hate him. You don't hate him.
Say,
right?
Hey, it's Steve. Come on.
And he had a great thing where he wanted his hairstyle. He also is a guy who looks good in a wig, which is crazy.
He looks really good in a wig.
And that was his idea because his hair is based on Edgar Allan Poe's. So that was his idea. Yeah, it was great. So good.
Oh, God. We love Steve in the studio.
Yes.
We love
always.
Steve. Love Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Now, once Wednesday gets back to Nevermore, she's confronted with a horrifying fact. She's popular. Gross. Why does Wednesday despise this new development so much?
With people like her, she's not going to like that.
Right.
She likes being her own person. She likes the fact that people don't like her, that she makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah, she's an island. Yeah. She's not interested in joining other people. So that's, again, the purity of Wednesday Addams is she doesn't care. Yeah. That's the last thing she wants is eyes on her. She wants to live in her own little corner and do what she does.
And she's not going to allow herself to be manipulated by popularity. So I think, that's why, I love the speech when she gets up there because it was just I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
This is not who I am. This is all stupid. I'm not doing this.
She's never going to conform.
And it's part of the aspirational element of the character that she does things that people wish they could. People are chasing popularity, but she doesn't need to.
Right.
So I think she sees through that. I think that's refreshing. But also there's a downside in terms of, does that make her happy?
Yeah. It's kind of isolating.
Yeah.
To stick to your guns.
Yeah.
That's right. And there are pros and cons to that. I think that's something we definitely explore in the show.
Yeah.
You thought I was your hero? I'm not. I always play dirty and I never fight fair. The only side I'm on is my own. And the only place I'll lead you is off a cliff.
So the first episode includes this incredible stop motion sequence, very classic Tim Burton. What was the impetus behind that?
The stop motion sequence began as someone telling the story, which we need for backstory, but the skull tree, the legend of the skull tree. And then as we're writing, we thought, this is just boring. So how do we make it special and unique and very Tim? Mm-hmm. So we sort of came up with the idea, let's do a stop motion sequence. And it's actually very expensive to do that. So we thought, if ever we get a chance to do stop motion, this is the moment in terms of this show. So we talked to Tim, and Tim loved the idea. And we got a team in the UK who had worked with Tim before, and they built these incredible sets. And it took probably 8 months actually from start to finish. And it's only 60 seconds. And just the attention to detail. And then Tim actually designed the head.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he came in, they said, I'll come over to see Tim in his trailer. And he had this little Tupperware box. And inside he opened it up, and in this tissue paper was this model head that he had built made over the weekend with a bunch of safety pins for hair. And it was just just seeing this decapitated head of this design in this box was just oh my God, it's going to be incredible. So it really, and I got to go to see the sets and see them making a few seconds of the sequence. And it was just mind blowing how big the sets were, the detail of the sets, and just the attention to detail, and how long it takes to make,
there's so much going on this season, and it really is, as a audience member, viewer, fan, and SAG-AFTRA actor, I had to.
Yeah.
It all blends so seamlessly. There's so much going on, so many different storylines, and I loved this season. I just have to say.
That's great.
You.
Yeah.
Our mantra in our writer's room is always never boring.
Right.
So that's every episode has to be a full feast of
Nevermore is never boring.
Nevermore is never
boring. So for us, it's always about keep grabbing attention and making sure that we have a lot of spinning plates, and somehow at the end they all don't fall.
Come together.
They don't break.
Yeah. But
it has to
but
make
it's juggling.
sense. Yeah.
It's sometimes it's like in the middle of it, it's like, oh my God, all these things gonna
Are they all gonna work?
come together.
Yeah.
But
They did.
yeah, well, it's great.
They
Good to
did.
hear.
You did good work, guys.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you so much both for joining me today and being here. I cannot wait to have you back on to get in all the juicy details of the rest of the season.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. In the next episode, I will be joined by Hunter Doohan, who will be here to dish all on Tyler and Wednesday, Tyler and his master, and transforming into a Hyde. Who was the worst?
Who's
I'm
the
kidding.
worst? Owen Painter.
He's awful. Plus, I'll be chatting with director Paco Cabezas, who will break down all of the insane action we have seen so far.
He goes super close to her, and they're like super, super close to each other, but there's a wall in between them. In the end, it's all about the little movements and the little details.
And magician, actor, Thing's emotional support human, Victor Dorbansu, will be here to talk us through Thing's journey this season.
Big lesson, guys. Don't drink prop drinks.
What
Water
was
right
it?
Here. It was not rum, for sure.
That is all coming up on the next episode of the Wednesday Season 2 official WOCast. I'm Caitlin Riley, and I'll catch you next time, my little nightshades.